Hey guys, Khalid here. So if I had a bit more time to go on the PTR and test out the harder Azeroth essences with what their current powers are and see what are the best ones for Fury Warriors. So right now I am using the same gear I have on live. The only difference is that I'm going to use the essences, and it's actually a crazy amount of DPS increase that I'm getting. So right now what I think the best setup is for major power is Blood of the Enemy. For minor power is the Unbound Force. Now, one thing to note for these harder Azeroth essences, minor power doesn't sound that strong, but just kind of think of it more as an essence just has part A and part B, right? Minor power doesn't necessarily mean it's less. It just mainly means it's more of the passive version of that essence. And for the Unbound Force, the passive of this is basically the best trait that you have versus all the other passives, right? So don't go into it thinking that major is like this huge big thing where the minors are kind of like, it's whatever. The minors are very powerful on all these traits. Now, as far as for like all the traits, we can kind of just go through each one right now. You know, you've seen what I think is the best setup. Of course, Blood of the Enemy, when you activate it, it's going to give you a huge amount of AoE burst to everything around you. It will be the highest damaging spell you'll have if you pick this. And it'll give you a 25% critical chance against everything that you hit with it, and increases your critical damage by 35% for 15 seconds. The reason why it's so good with the Unbound Force is because the Unbound Force, the minor power, whenever you hit an ability with a target or auto attacks, any attacks, if it fails to crit, you'll get a stack of the Unbound Force. When it reaches 20 stacks, you get 100% crit for 6 seconds. Now, when you first look at this, you might go, okay, 20 stacks, that's a fair amount, right? But it actually stacks from every single individual attack. So your autos, when you rampage, if all 4 rampages don't crit, that's 4 stacks. So if you don't have that much crit on your gear, which you can see, like I've basically taken off as much crit as I can, right? I've taken off my crit enchant, taken off most of the crit gear that I have. The only few sources of crit that I might have is obviously your harder Azeroth. You can't really get rid of that crit. I might have another crit somewhere else in another piece of gear, right? So try to lower your crit as much as you can, so that way you can proc this as much as you can. Your uptime on this ability and the buff that it gives you is actually insane. So here's the most recent one I did with the 3-minute DPS with the setup here. We can look at the buff uptime. The one that you're gonna want to see is Reckless Force. That's the one that actually gives you the 100% crit. So like when you first stack it up, it's called Unbound Force, and then when you get 100% crit chance, is Reckless Force. So I had 48.7% uptime on 100% crit hit chance. And so this trait along with it together is actually insane. And even if you don't have Blood of the Enemy, Unbound Force is definitely the best minor of all the traits. Like this trait is so good as a minor. Major is pretty good too. It's so good as a minor that it basically can make any other trait look great alongside it, right? For as long as you don't have that much crit yourself. My damage definitely did go up once I took away most of my crit gear. So definitely, maybe this is something that you might want to start planning. If this does remain the best setup you can have, definitely start getting non-critical strike version of all the gear that you have, right? Because right now on live, you actually do want a fair amount of crit, right? Because there's even some people that are gemming and enchanting crit because that's what's sitting best for them. When these traits come out and you put this on, you don't really want that much crit. You actually want as low crit as you can. So if you can now, make sure to start saving gear in slots where, if you have like a really crit heavy ring, make sure you have a ring, that doesn't have crit on it. Ideally, I think what the stats are going to be haste and mastery. Obviously, just not crit. Versatility might get up there once we get enough haste and mastery, but currently with the eye level that we have now, it's not there yet. Going down to some of the other traits, Condensed Life Force. This trait actually seems like, as a major power, it can actually do a really huge burst. The call upon Azeroth to summon a guardian Azeroth aid you in combat for 20 seconds. This guy, when he comes down, actually gives you a crazy amount of burst. Not only that, he basically gives you 4% haste for every spell you cast, stacking it 5 times, so that's 20% haste. Your burst with this guy is pretty good. The only problem is that he is on a 5-minute cooldown, so on a prolonged thing, where the guardian actually isn't up, because you can't just keep using it in a fight, because most of the time you can maybe use it twice, maybe 3 times if the fight's really long, but I think just to cool down it is too long, so it doesn't do as great. Essence is the Focus on Iris. This is the one where you focus excess energy into Heart Azeroth and expel energy going outward. Now this thing, when it says it does 130k fire damage, which Blood of the Enemy only does right now 37k. Now, the problem with this trait is that first you have to have a 1.1 second cast time. Obviously, that's increased by haste. So first you have a cast time that's over 1 second where you're doing nothing, right? Then you have to finish the channel, which is for right now is an additional 2.4 seconds. So you basically it takes you 3.5 seconds for all the damage to go out. And during this time, you can't use any other abilities. So you're not gaining any rage at this time either. So the problem with this trait is that, yeah, maybe initially when you actually might use it, there might be some good burst and damage, but it really doesn't set up your burst afterwards. Whereas Blood of the Enemy, yeah, the initial explosion might be less, but you're doing crazy damage to everything around you right afterwards, right? So your, Whirlwind Rampages with your Blaze Storm and Dragon War are going to do much more to the target, whereas this trait, Essence of the Focus on Iris, really just doesn't set you up for anything. Memory of the Lucid Dreams, this is basically recklessness, but without the crit component, right? Increases your rage generation by 100%. Now, this does stack with your recklessness, so when you actually have those together, your rage generation is actually insane. Like, you basically hit Rampage every other ability. With the minor power of Lucid Dreams, your spells and abilities have a chance to refund 50% of the rage spent on them, and then heal you, whatever. And then when you get some rage, you get versatility. But the thing is, you have a chance to refund 50% of the rage. Obviously, the chance is it doesn't proc like crazy, but it procs a fair amount where you can actually see it. For this trait, if you actually have Memory of Lucid Dreams as a major and you're running it, the buff is up and your reckless is up. If you actually spend Rampage, you can just press Rampage again if you get the refund on your rage. That's how much rage that it can give you with the refund. So with this one, be careful. Make sure you're spamming that Rampage button basically as much as you can when you have both buffs up, because you are going to cap on rage because of how much rage generation you get from this. Purification Protocol, it fires down a beam at our target. I think this is maybe going to be a Mythic Plus trait. The only thing I don't know about the trait is that when it kills enemies with the beam, if that 10% damage will stack. If it stacks, then this could be pretty good for, I guess, any like AoE fight with just small ads. You pop on the ads, kill the ads, right, and you get a big damage increase buff. For the minor version of it, it might not be bad, especially if there's a lot of aberrations in whatever content you're doing. So this could potentially be a more fringe scenario where, if there's a lot of ads you can kill to stack up the buff, and then if there's a lot of aberrations in whatever encounter you're doing. Reality Shift, unfortunately, this one doesn't seem to be working right now currently on the PTR, so I can't really test it, but it does seem like it won't do that much damage because there's a lot of utility components to the ability. So I don't think this one will be that great when it is fixed even. Crucible of Flames, it basically just does damage and it stacks up to 3 times and it ramps up. So like, 1, 2, 3, increasing in damage for each one. It's okay. The damage isn't that great to write home about, so it's whatever. And because of the synergistically with the other traits, having like actual crit increase as a minor doesn't really work that well for something like Unbound Force, for example, which it's basically the best power. Like, you want Unbound Force on your essence no matter what, and with that, something that just gives you a passive crit hit chance doesn't really work out. And then, of course, we talked about Unbound Force, but if you want to see the active for this is actually on a really short cooldown, 45 seconds, and it's one of the shortest major power cooldowns there is. It just unleashes damage, causing a set amount of damage over 2 seconds. This isn't a channel ability, but it is a dot, so just pay attention to that the dot will tick through. So you want to make sure that you have like 2 seconds before your 100% crit hit chance finishes, because whenever the major power crits, its damage is increased by 300%. So basically, the way you want to use the major is you only want to use it when the minor power procs and you get that 100% critical hit chance. Now, the other thing with all of these traits is that all of these traits damages gets buffed by all of our buffs, right? That is something huge. That is something that we're missing as Fury Warriors in BFA, right? Because from Legion to BFA, our trinkets were able to be buffed with all of our buffs. So we had these crazy unused active abilities in the form of our trinkets where, we get it buffed up, we use it for big damage. But now in BFA, we don't have that, right? The trinkets aren't affected by our buffs, but these essences are, and that's what's huge, right? So for a lot of these actives, you want to make sure all your buffs are running, especially the ones that do big damage, pop the damage, and your damage will spike up. Then you have Vision of Perfection. I don't really know why they nerfed this for Fury. I don't think they should nerf their Fury because right now it's absolute garbage. It really doesn't do anything. It never procs. Like on a 3-minute fight where I hit a dummy, maybe it'll proc once, maybe not. Usually it doesn't even proc. So this trait right now, absolutely garbage. And on top of that, the minor power doesn't even work really well with anything. especially because if blood of the enemy is such a good major power, that thing is on a 1.5 minute cooldown. Your recklessness base is on a 1 minute cooldown, so if you don't reduce the cooldowns of both, you just stack them together, right? And it works really well together because this trait obviously gives you crit hit damage, and it's obviously going to be really great with anything that modifies your crit hit chance. So Vision Perfection is bad. World Vein Boom, this one is just an average trait. It just drops a shard next to you and it gives you a mana of strength. The one thing to note that with the minor power, when it procs, you'll proc maybe like 3 shards on average, and then when you activate it, you can get 3 more shards. Each shard individually will give you strength. So if you have 6 shards up, you just have 6 times the amount of strength. Like, it actually stacks, but it is not that great because it just gives you strength. And we all know, secondary stats are going to be much better than something like just strength. So all combined, the traits, they all have potential. Memory of Lucid Dreams, if somehow, let's say when the patch comes out and the inbound force is like impossible to get, or if it gets nerfed or something, Memory of the Lucid Dreams as a passive is actually not that bad. It does give you better in-range uptime. You can focus more on having more mastery and all that stuff because you are going to get a significant more rage with this. But as far as for like the highest potential, I think it's definitely going to be Blood Enemy, and it's definitely going to be using this ability very effectively because it's going to give you that crit hit damage, especially when you have the 100% crit hit chance rolling. The other thing is, maybe for the first Blood Enemy, you can just pop it with all of your cooldowns, but for the subsequent ones, you definitely want to make sure you have the crit hit chance at 100% before you use this, because Blood Enemy will be your hardest hitting ability, right? With all of your buffs, it should be hitting for over 100k right now, without even increasing my eye level. So I'm going to show you guys a clip of me DPSing this on the PTR. We're going to actually go up to above 90k on our opener at around 20 some seconds in the fight, and then we're going to end at like a little bit over 50k DPS. So definitely get ready, because right now on live when I did this, I'm only doing 26k DPS, right, over 3 minutes. But when we're actually here on the dummy on the PTR with only essences being changed, right, because there is no Fury change, right? The only thing we're getting at 8.2 right now that we know of are the essences, and our DPS goes from, at least my DPS right now is going up from 26k over 3 minutes to over 50k in 3 minutes. So definitely something to look forward to, right? Almost doubling our DPS just from having 2 essences. So hopefully you guys enjoy the clip of me DPSing the ads, and as always, thanks for checking out the video, guys. Feel free to subscribe to see more. See ya.
You're going to love this. Trust me. What you're seeing now.
Didn't get the
my
proc.
normal
Come on,
state.
Blizzard. One time.
This is a Super Saiyan. And this.
Oh, sudden death proc. I like it. I like it. Sudden death proc. Another one. Oh yeah, dude. Oh, slap me with those sudden death procs.
Just call this a Super Saiyan 2. Just wait.
Yo, do you see that burst? Yo, do we hit 75k for a prolonged opener, dude? Is that the power? The RNG?
And this. What he doing? Is to go even further beyond.
We say 2 minutes 34 seconds, right? When executing? Okay.
It's unreal. How is he generating that much power?
Looks like the whole world is shaking apart.
What is Coco doing? If he doesn't stop this, everything is going to be destroyed.
No, stop it, Goku! If you do this now, it's going to bring away all the time you have left on Earth. And I say we need every second of it as it is.
Damn, we were broken 50k without even having to execute. We're having to execute here. Oh shit, this is execute time. Oh my god, I fucking did it. Oh, 51k DPS, dude. Let's go.